Hold on. There we go. Just hold on. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Super excited to host today's session, crypto and real estate. We're going to talk some real stuff, good stuff. Some things are going to be new to some of you, and some of you are maybe in the game to some extent. Again, super excited to have this session. Cryptocurrency been around for quite some time, real estate for even longer. So combine the two together, and what do we get? We're going to get a cool mastermind today. And I want to introduce our speakers. They're in the game. They are each an expert in their field, and I'm going to do a kind of brief intro, and once we're gonna jump in, please feel free to share more a bit, about your background, if you may. So first, David Ryder. David is here to represent Forum Pay. He's going to tell us a little bit more about again him in the company. He's also part of the Trinity Atlantic Capital Group, and we got to know one another, me and David, through basically escrow company, and that was the connection between crypto and escrow. And again, we're going to hear more from David in a little while. David, anything else you just want to share with us for that opening?
Hello, everyone. No, I think that was good. I'll go over some stuff more when I give me a little spiel.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. And then we have Grant Luna. Grant, good to have you. Grant is actively in the business. He's currently both an account executive with a Fidelity title rep, and also a licensed agent. All right. And I think Grant, you also has background with some commercial real estate, M&M. And other good stuff in the past.
Yep. Yeah. And I also I work for Anderson Business Advisors. So once a week, I basically host like a cryptocurrency webinar. So from there, kind of just run through how cryptocurrencies work and how people can use wallets and exchanges and all those things. So I would say not necessarily an expert. I feel like that's always a hard thing to live up to, but try my best to be learning and helping people understand.
So what we're going to do today, we're going to open up with Grant. He's going to give us what we call Crypto 101, right? And just for us that don't really fully understand the concept behind digital currency, what crypto is, different coins, NFTs, whatever. So Grant is going to will give us he put some sense into that. And on a side note, Grant does a lot of speaking engagement throughout different offices. I think also in out of state, right? A few times.
Yeah, I worked for that conference, out of state once.
Yeah. So let's do it. Let's go. Grant, stage is yours. Talk to us if you want to share anything.
For sure. Yeah, I'll put some slides up.
Yeah, all yours. Thank you.
Sweet. But yeah, nice to virtually meet everybody. This is a little bit nicer. I had a talk a few weeks back, and it was in front of people, and that's always terrifying compared to looking at a computer screen. So this is a little bit easier, luckily. But yeah, so like Meny said, I'll be doing just like a 101, and cryptocurrency really is a super broad and dense topic, and all of these things that I'm going to be talking about today in themselves could be hours long webinars and conferences and trying to understand. So I don't want anyone to walk away from this if you're not getting some of the concepts that I'm talking about and be frustrated, because even me personally, I consider myself fairly techie, and it took me months to understand even just some of these smaller concepts that I'll be talking about today. But what I wanted to do was hopefully give a broad overview of some of the history of cryptocurrency and its background and the actual mechanics of how some of these networks are structured and why they're structured the way that they are. And then lastly, like Meny said, give a little bit of a breakdown of some different cryptocurrencies and ways to kind of create conceptual frameworks for understanding the different cryptocurrencies that do exist, and then also giving somewhat of an insight of where the cryptocurrency space is right now and some things to consider. But when I was really looking at it and trying to understand why cryptocurrency still is very confusing, I think it was two big things. And I think the first is there really is just a ton of technical jargon that you kind of have to weed through and take a while to really understand. So things like blockchain or proof of work mining or staking or hashing or all these random words that I think for most people, especially if they don't spend a ton of time working with computers or working on networks, might have a difficult time of understanding and seeing where some of the value is. And I think another thing on top of that is, at least from my perspective, I've been following it for a little bit longer, but I think for most people, maybe they've heard it randomly once or twice in the past. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like it's everywhere, right? Where you're seeing cryptocurrency commercials on the Super Bowl, and you're seeing the Staples Center turn into crypto.com, and maybe you're confused of what these things still are, right? And maybe it seems super fast and it's hard to really understand how these things are working, but they're also moving at rapid speed. And I think that can be challenging for some people. But I think when I was kind of understanding cryptocurrency and learning about it, I think what got me interested initially was really actually learning about that history of where something like Bitcoin even came from. And I think on first glance, it's easy just to say, okay, Bitcoin was this first cryptocurrency. Now there's all these other spin-off cryptocurrencies, and that's how it works. But what was actually really interesting was seeing that there's actually a long-standing history even before Bitcoin, and trying to create some form of digital currency that isn't necessarily controlled by a central bank or a government. And so there's actually this group of people, and they called themselves the cypherpunks. And these were people that for a long time developed different forms of technology or privacy software or whatever it was, but there always was this kind of focus in trying to create some form, like I said, of digital currency that could be sent from one individual to another over the internet without necessarily needing to go through a bank or have that basically approved. And so they tried for a while, and there was actually different like digital currencies before Bitcoin that were created. So there's some called like DigiCash or BitGold or B-Money or Hashcash, all kind of revolving around that same idea. But most of these failed for different reasons. So some of them were reliant on a company behind it, like DigiCash, or some just had technical issues and ultimately still had that leaning on a central party running these programs and had a lot of issues of trust. If how could you trust a program that is ran by an individual or small group of people? And so that seemed to have shifted when Bitcoin was created. And so in the year 2008, a pseudonymous figure named Satoshi Nakamoto went to that very same group of people that were working on these projects and released something called a white paper that people may have heard of. And that's just a fancy way of saying a research proposal, basically saying, hey, I've created this thing. It's called Bitcoin. If you're interested in it, take a look at it, ask me any questions that you have. And if you are really interested in it, you can join me in actually running this network and taking part in its development, its coding, and the actual maintenance of the network itself. And so I think that was the other thing that was really interesting to me about Bitcoin was it did seem like it was a group of just individuals that were interested in the technology and wanted to see if this project could turn into something cool. And so people did start to join Bitcoin, whether that be mining or whatever it was. But the general process in actually taking part in this network is basically downloading the Bitcoin software to your computer, connecting with other people that are running the Bitcoin network as well. And then from there, you basically can send Bitcoin back and forth from each other. But then you also take part in the actual maintenance of the network, meaning keeping the rules of the Bitcoin network, such as the max supply of Bitcoin that could exist, which is 21 million, or authorizing new transactions or making sure all the transactions are valid that are taking place. So it's kind of this really collective grassroots effort initially. And even in the early days of Bitcoin, there wasn't even a price associated with it. So it was mostly people that were just interested in the technology and were sending it back and forth. And there was funny cases now looking back where someone sent 10,000 Bitcoin basically to someone overseas to order them a pizza, and they got 2 large pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin because it was technically a worthless technology, but a technology that people were interested in. And there was even funny examples where you could go to a website like this and enter a CAPTCHA on this website and you'd get 5 Bitcoin for free. So it's basically this project where people were just interested and passionate about these projects. But in terms of like understanding the why for Bitcoin, I think it's important to really look at what exists now, because like I said, Bitcoin is just trying to be a new form of digital money, right? And there's the currency itself, there's a token that exists on the network, but there's also the network structure itself. So the people that are running these computers and running this network. But I think what helped me understand it is looking at the current digital payment landscape, seeing how these things work and seeing some of the shortcomings that Bitcoin aims to be different than. So I think what helped me was really just seeing money in its technical form. And it's just this database that we're users on. So I think this picture here on the top right is kind of a good example of that, where you basically have this money system. So we're using the dollar network per se, and we're all users on this network. And it's an efficient network and works really well, but there is a structural element to that, where there's just a central person that is in charge of maintaining this database or maintaining this ledger that we are all users on. And it's worked really well, like I said, but there are some potential shortcomings that the creators of Bitcoin really talked about. And the first being that a centralized network has centralized control of access. So in these types of networks, we're all permissioned users, right? We basically have to be allowed access to these databases that we're a part of, as well as the actual accounts that we have on these databases. We have these accounts that we hold our money in, that we're working for, we're saving our money in, but these accounts are still ultimately up to that central authority that is giving us access every time we put in a PIN code. The second thing is the actual processing of that transaction, once again, is reliant on this central party to actually send money in digital form back and forth from people that also exist on this dollar network. Once again, there's a lot of trust in that they'll actually allow me to get into my account, and that they'll actually allow me to send that money to someone that I want to. And then the last thing is the actual monetary supply. So the actual dollars that exist on that network, we're trusting that central party, once again, to maintain that value, to actually maintain the integrity of the system that we're trusting works. And so it has worked for at least people using the dollar for a long time, but that's something the actual creator of Bitcoin talked about in the early days of Bitcoin, saying the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold their money and transfer it electronically. And like I said, this trust system has worked well for us, but even in recent history, you can see where some of these three things can fall apart, where the central control of access works well until it doesn't, right? Where we've seen even countries where maybe we didn't expect to see it, like Canada, people have their bank accounts basically taken away from them, or their ability to access them, or getting their money out of an ATM, or the ability to actually send money digitally can be censored at any point in time, especially if you're trying to send it internationally, and some of those governments might not have friendly or banking relationships. And the last thing, the money supply. Obviously, we've seen recent examples in countries like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, where the actual integrity of the money that exists on that database can be undermined. And even in the United States, we've seen in the last couple of years where large amounts of this currency can be created. And obviously it has the benefits with asset prices and everything like that, but ultimately it does undermine the value of the currency. So that's where these cryptocurrency networks really try to create a structural difference in how they are managed. So instead of a network where you have a central party that is in charge of maintaining this database, it's this collective effort where everyone is an equal peer on the network. And what that means is every single individual that is a part of this network, if you look at this picture here, has the same responsibility to have the same copy of the database that they're sharing with each other. And if you do have the copy of that database, you in essence can see every single transaction that's ever taken place on that network. And you can also make sure that you update that database every time a transaction takes place moving forward on that network. And also on top of that, you have the awareness of the rules of that network. So for example, Bitcoin, a major rule is the max supply of Bitcoin that can be created. So every single person has the awareness of that rule and can make sure that every person that is trying to be a part of that network follows that rule. And I think an example that kind of helped me understand how these networks survive without necessarily a central coordinating party is to think of it as language. So all of these people, for example, could be connected by speaking the same literal language. Maybe it's English, maybe it's Spanish, maybe it's a different language. But they're all connected by speaking that language. And anyone is free to learn that language and connect with other people speaking that language that way. And anyone at the same time is also free to change that language a little bit if they wanted to. So this individual here, for example, they could start speaking English, but maybe they wanted to change it a little bit. And maybe they're not going to use nouns and verbs anymore. Maybe they're just going to use adjectives and adverbs and try to speak to people that way. So now when they go to actually connect to the other people, they're no longer speaking the same language. It doesn't necessarily impact the rest of the people on this network. They're free to continue operating as they are. But now this person is kind of voluntarily taking themselves out of the network. And the same is true of a lot of these cryptocurrency networks, where since everyone does have the actual software on their computer and can change the software as they want, they're free to do so. So for example, someone in the Bitcoin network could take their code and say, instead of 21 million Bitcoin, I want this code where in the future, we're going to create 100 million Bitcoin. We're going to change the rules. And so they're free to do that, but now they've essentially just voluntarily taken themselves out of the network. And now these 4 people would continue running Bitcoin as is. This person created an entirely new network. But in terms of the big questions with these blockchains and kind of looking at this is, okay, we have this structure and it works in terms of having this balance of rule keeping and maintenance of the network, but how do we decide who should be the one to actually create new blocks of transactions, right? If we don't have this person in the middle that we can trust or we rely on to actually process new transactions and make sure that they're not committing fraudulent transactions, what is the process in which we can do so, right? So how do we decide who can update this ledger? And then when we do pick someone to update that ledger, how do we make sure that person isn't going to act against the interests of the network that we're operating, such as creating transactions that are fraudulent, so basically transactions that don't exist, or creating more currency than they should based on the rules of that network. So obviously, like I said, proof of work mining and proof of stake, these can be topics in themselves. So I don't expect people to have a full understanding and want people to continue learning on their own if they're interested on the technical side. But proof of work is one system in which these networks have decided how we will decide who should be the one to create a new block of transactions that we can now add to the database that we're all working on. So what proof of work is, it's basically this competitive process where all the people on this network that want to take part in it, they get these very specialized computers called ASICs. And there's these computer machines that they'll connect to the Bitcoin network. And it does basically just one thing. It creates blocks of pending transactions as fast as possible, and then also takes part in this competitive guessing game. So based off how many people are taking part of this, the Bitcoin network will say, okay, guess the number between 1 and 100. And this is a very simple way of putting it, but they'll try to guess that number correctly and then also put together a block of transactions. And if they do that faster than everyone else, they can share that work with everyone else. So let's say, for example, this individual here, they compiled a block of pending transactions, and then they guessed the number correctly, right? So let's say it was 50, they guessed the number 50, and now they'll share that work with everyone else. So they'll share it to this person, who shares it to this person, who shares it to this person, who shares it to this person. And since everyone on this network has the awareness of previous transactions, they can go through and make sure that every transaction in that block is valid, because they can see when that Bitcoin was created, when it was sent to this person that's trying to send it to this person now, and they can validate all of that. They can also validate that guessing game as well. And if it is a valid block of transactions, they'll attach it now to their chain that they're working on, which is basically just that database. The flip side of that is if, let's say, for example, this person tried to create a block of transactions, but some of those transactions were fraudulent, right? Maybe they tried to send some Bitcoin to themselves that they didn't actually have ownership of. Everyone else, once again, can look at that and say, that's a fake transaction. I'm going to reject that work. You basically didn't do the work correctly. And where these incentives come into play, where it kind of disincentivizes people of trying to undermine the network, is this person is paying for electricity around the clock to run these machines, and they paid for a machine that maybe cost them $10,000. So literally the only way to recoup this investment is to actually do the work correctly, because if you do create a block of transactions that is approved by everyone else, you get rewarded in a set amount of Bitcoin and all the transaction fees that exist within that block. So it's the only way to make the money back, and it creates that incentive structure. And the other system that exists, and this is more of the newer cryptocurrencies now, is proof of stake. And so now, instead of this competitive process, which requires a lot of energy and hardware requirements, instead for something like Ethereum to become a part of that system and validate new blocks of transactions and get rewarded, you actually have to have a certain amount of Ethereum that you lock up in the network. So for example, it's 32 Ethereum within the Ethereum network. So all of these people might have 32 Ethereum. They basically lock it up on this computer and say, okay, I'm going to be taking part in this validation process. And how it works is these networks randomly select an individual to compile a block of transactions that are all valid, and then share that work with everyone else. And so let's say this person does that. They compile a block of transactions, and if they're all valid, everyone will attach that to their database and keep moving on forward. And then the flip side of that, where that incentive exists to only act in the interest of the network, is if this person tries to commit a fraudulent transaction, everyone else can see that that transaction is fraudulent. And what they'll do is they'll take some of their tokens that they've locked up. So there's kind of this skin in the game situation. So both of these systems are basically a way of designing a system where you can remove the need for a third party, a trusted third party, and actually maintain the ability to process transactions. But in terms of the types of cryptocurrencies, I think if anything that you take away, I think this is probably the easiest thing, is just a conceptual understanding of what these different types of cryptocurrencies are and what the points are. The first is just Bitcoin, right? Which is kind of the industry standard of what a cryptocurrency network is. And Bitcoin, in just a simple sense, is just trying to be a form of digital money. Like I said, that doesn't require a third party to issue new units of that currency or transact with that currency. And there's a max supply of 21 million Bitcoin. But I think the most distinguishing factor with Bitcoin, especially now compared to other cryptocurrencies, is the fact that there's no company behind it. There isn't a CEO or corporate board behind Bitcoin. There isn't a small group of individuals that can control Bitcoin. And it's essentially this very distributed and decentralized network that exists around the world today. And then other cryptocurrencies started to develop over time. So the nature of Bitcoin is such that it's open source code, meaning that anyone can download the code for Bitcoin, like I said, and make changes that they want to. And so other people saw the Bitcoin network and saw some potential flaws in their opinion of the way that Bitcoin was structured. So one example is something like Monero, for example, that you might see on CoinMarketCap. And what Monero did is they looked at Bitcoin and the nature of these databases that everyone can see every address and every transaction that takes place. And they didn't like that fact. They thought that it wasn't necessarily as private as it could be. So Monero designed a system in which basically most of these transactions are impossible to actually see and track basically. Litecoin is a system where they basically increased the supply of Bitcoin and made it easier to mine actual Litecoin in the system, or something like XRP, where they saw Bitcoin and saw some potential limitations in the actual speed of the network and try to create somewhat of a similar system that's using that decentralized network and this blockchain system, but allow for faster and more transactions over time. But now we've kind of moved into a different stage of the cryptocurrency space where now instead of having these networks mostly just be used for transacting value and money between individuals that are using this network, but now it's basically these projects that take that overarching idea of a decentralized peer-to-peer network and these blockchains and instead repurposing it for something else. And the main thing are these things called smart contracts. And obviously we're here to talk about real estate and most people should be familiar with what contracts are, but to break them down in a very simple sense, they're basically just if-then statements. So if I'm thinking about a real estate contract, the if-then statements could be, if this person signs a contract, then we will open escrow. If the buyer puts in an earnest money deposit, then we will move forward with escrow. If this person removes their contingencies and wires $500,000 over to the seller, then we will transfer the deed of ownership over to this new buyer. So that's kind of just a very simple sense of what contracts can be. And what these people realize is you can just create automated code that can execute a lot of these smart contracts. So a lot of these things on these networks are, instead of having the data on the blockchains be just transfers of money, it's instead the execution of financial agreements, or now, like Meny was talking about, the creation of NFTs and the transfer of ownerships, or the release of tokens on top of it, and being able to do things like an initial public offering, but with tokens instead. And then other cryptocurrencies that exist that you're probably going to see are things like stable coins. So those would be things like Tether or USDC. And these are kind of serving as synthetic representations of the dollar. So they always try to maintain a one-to-one peg to the dollar and are mostly used by traders, and especially in times of great volatility. So let's say I'm trading very actively on an exchange and there's a lot of volatility in the time and I want to get into something without having to completely cash out of the exchange. I can go into one of these stable coins and maintain that dollar peg. And then there's obviously the meme coins, which I think most people have probably heard of by now because those seem to get the most attention, unfortunately. But meme coins are basically just these projects that are kind of taking advantage of social media trends like the Shiba Inu or Doge coins or whatever it is, where there's not necessarily a lot of economic activity actually being done on the blockchains or systems themselves, but instead people are trying to obviously make a quick profit. And I think obviously that can be said of most cryptocurrencies themselves, where there's still, I feel like, somewhat limited economic activity going on. And there still is a lot of general speculation that maybe one day there will be more economic use cases for these protocols. But to finish up before passing it on, I just wanted to talk, I guess, a little bit of where this space seems to be headed, and I guess urge some caution in the sense that the original, I guess, concept of Bitcoin, of having this network that anyone can join and anyone is free to mine Bitcoin, and it's kind of this open network, seems to be shifting away. And now we're moving into this space where it's mostly somewhat investing in these tech startups and companies that are very tightly controlled and can be changed at any time. So you actually look at a graph, something like here. So basically this graph looks at the major public blockchains and the launch date versus insider allocation. So insider allocation meaning the amount of tokens that are basically just owned by developers or the venture capitalists or companies that are behind these projects. And as you see, over time, this space has kind of transitioned where before the public is even allowed to get some of these tokens or take part in these projects, most of these tokens themselves are already just owned by the companies that are starting them, such as the venture capitalists or the developers, or some of them basically just have companies behind them and CEOs and marketing teams and legal teams, whatever it is, or they just have the actual structure of the network where it's very dependent on like a centralized data center or something like that. So ultimately, to say that the space, especially like newer cryptocurrencies, it's important to kind of see that as you're investing in more of like a company now. And since these things aren't necessarily securities, there are a lot of, I guess, potential risks with that and things to watch out for. But ultimately, I think the biggest takeaway with all of this is you don't necessarily have to have a super deep technical understanding to take advantage of the things that David and Meny will be talking about in terms of allowing the people that you're working with, whether you're working with buyers or sellers or you're working with escrow companies, you won't have to know the ins and outs of how these things work. But I think it's just important to have maybe an understanding of some of the different conceptual frameworks of what different cryptocurrencies are. But I think as we move forward in the cryptocurrency space, most of these things will be made easy through services like David is offering and allowing for easy transactions. So I guess I'll pass the mic over to David now so he can explain a little bit more.
Let me unmute. Hello, hello.
Yeah, can hear you.
Let me share my screen with all of you.
And good job, Grant. Just as a side note, that was like
Thank you, Grant.
mind-blowing and just really good step-by-step digestible 101. And again, this is recorded, so you guys can go back and do a slow mode of Grant talking again about all the good stuff if you missed any piece of this. Good job, Grant.
Thanks, Meny.
Awesome. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir. So, David, give us a bit background about, you and what FormPay is all about, and then the relationship between us, and then take it from there so people understand the connection. Because right now, Grant gave us the 101, so Bitcoin, the concept. Okay, we got the idea. Now what?
So with Bitcoin, as you know, as the future, as Grant was talking about, it will be Bitcoin to Bitcoin. Right now, though, we have a Bitcoin to cash. You have a lot of the sellers that just want cash. You have people who want to buy with crypto, but they don't want to deal with the crypto. They don't want to deal with the volatility. So we are a payment service that instantly converts a payment to cash and wires it like normal to their bank account for any business. But with real estate, we found that it's the escrow company and the title company, which is why I've been speaking with Meny and talking about that. So FormPay allows any company to accept crypto payments. There's multiple ways to implement it. It's all at the end of all the point of sale. So it's the customer is given a QR code they can scan from any wallet. I'll get into it a little bit. So as Grant was saying, crypto is the next evolution of money. Can you guys see this? Should I hide this part?
We can only see a presentation.
Oh, cool. Okay. Cryptocurrency. Yeah. So, as you see, go down some crypto facts. There's a huge demand out there for people to use their crypto right now. So for past, I don't know, since Bitcoin started, people have been trading it around, having fun on their phones, but never really been able to pay with it or buy something with it. And just having that creates so much value. So problems with payments right now, if you were to accept Bitcoin to Bitcoin, or someone wanted to pay for a house in Ethereum, the seller, they just get cash like normal. They want cash. They don't want the volatility. So say if you sent one Bitcoin over to buy a house, by the time it gets there and by the time they're ready to open their wallet and sell it, the Bitcoin fluctuates. So there's a lot of volatility there. So they could actually, if it went down, be getting less money for their account, for their home. And a lot of time businesses still need to pay their bills in cash, and getting Bitcoin, it will go down, and then you have less money to pay your bills. So there's too much volatility with that. So businesses just need cash. So we saw that problem and has made a simple solution. The key, accepting cash. So what basically we do, we allow businesses to create accounts and create a QR code to be sent to the home buyer. In this case, with real estate, there is a verification process that has to happen, which will be taking place before the payment goes through. Yeah, so instantly convert it to cash. This is a little bit, if you just look in the bottom here, this is comparing it to normal credit card transactions to see kind of what Grant was talking about with the middleman and the people with decisions that can control it. With a credit card payment, there's so many people that need to verify it. There's a lot of extra work and it's not very efficient. But with blockchain technology, it's all automated and it goes directly. So as you see at the bottom, the customer makes a purchase, scanning the QR code, and it converts instantly to cash and is sent to the wire, sent to the escrow account in California. So as you know, as he was saying, there was a lot of illegal activity that happened on the blockchain in the beginning, and we know that. And we make sure that none of the wallets, through our verification process beforehand, we make sure none of the wallets, which is basically their bank account on their crypto bank account on their phone, is attached to any illegal activity or has any history of illegal activity. Which, as we see on the right, in 2021, only a small percentage of the total crypto transactions were from illicit activity, which, they cannot use our platform. Oh, yeah, there's my thing. So moving on to real estate on a nice foreign pay website. Right here, we have all different types of industries we're targeting. If anybody knows anyone? Right here, does anyone have any questions before I get into how it goes with real estate? You can type in the chat.
Yeah, just keep at it. I'm going to address questions as they come.
Cool. So so once we sign up with an escrow company, they are given this ability to sell or to send these payment links along with the wire. So it just gives the customer an extra option to pay. So it's very convenient and there's no volatility through instant conversion. Another thing Grant was saying, just the fact that there's so many of these cryptocurrencies, there's so many different wallets out there, there's all this information to know. The good thing about this platform is for you guys or for realtors selling to their clients, you don't need to know anything about it. You just say, hey, we can take your crypto. And then you talk to the seller and all they're getting is cash. So it's no confusion, it just makes this whole system simple. We're connecting this new market with the traditional market very simply. Next day it settles. So crypto, wire deposits before this is a verification process that we handle that will be handled with once you inform the escrow company of the crypto interest, they will be able to send and set up, facilitate the information to the verification process. Then once they get verified, the customer can take out their phone, open up any wallet they want, their preferred wallet. They don't have to transfer it to Coinbase or a wallet like that. They can use their preferred account and pay with the crypto of their choice, which is very nice because everyone loves their different cryptos and everyone trusts their different wallets. It's kind of like trusting a different bank account, Crypto instantly converted to cash and then at the best execution rate. So basically with all these different exchanges out there, they have execution rates is basically a little fee that they charge to trade on their platform during a certain time. So our platform is kind of like the hotels.com or the Travelocity. We are following about 10 of the top exchanges. And whenever that customer is about to purchase, we find the lowest rate. So we don't have any control over these exchange rates that are could be manipulated by these other companies if they're lagging. So it's nice. And then daily settlement payments to the title or escrow company, in California's case, escrow, next business day. And then on the way, they have a house. If you'd like some information about the verification process, just to kind of see what your customer would be going through. Money laundering, they're going to be completing these types of things. And it's very simple. They have to do a short video call just to verify everything, and then the funds will be settled into the account. The key that we found with this, as because it's all transferred to cash, it's not actually accepting crypto, so this is basically a marketing idea for these companies and for you guys as realtors to be able to go say, hey, buy this house in crypto. These crypto consumers are younger and they get excited, so you could tell them once, hey, buy this house with crypto, and then 3 months goes by, they don't remember. But if they see an advertisement that says buy this house with crypto, they check their Dogecoin and it's up 20%. If they buy the house that day, it's a 20% discount. You know what I mean? So it's there's a lot of benefits to marketing and just offering this to your clients. So if anyone needs any help with it, let me know. Right there. Any questions, let me know in the chat. Yeah, very simple. Crypto to cash. Boom.
Awesome presentation, David. Thank you. And I do want to go back for a second and have you guys, between you and Grant, first of all, describe what a wallet is, right? So some people will understand because we know what it is, but some people I'm not sure. Is that actual wallet? What is it?
Yeah.
Then I want to link back Grant on the title perspective. I'm talking about California language right now, right? If you can kind of dive deeper about the which is its basic concept, right? About the money as consideration, because we did the conversion, then what, right? So if one of you want to talk about the wallet first, is the concept of what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could help with that. Yeah, so wallets are basically, and it could be on your phone or it could be on your computer. But I think someone said in the chat too, like cold wallets versus hard wallets. But all these wallets are just devices that allow you to actually access the funds that you have ownership of. And so basically, I guess I can show an example. If I share my screen, that might be easier. And I could show an example of a wallet. I'll share my screen really quick. So for example, this is an example of a Bitcoin wallet that I have on my computer, for example, right? And with this, I can receive Bitcoin to this address, right? So this address is an actual address that you would find that exists on the Bitcoin network, potentially. So let's say I bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase, and then I wanted to send it to myself and actually take ownership of that Bitcoin, because that's another key distinction where I think most people are buying Bitcoin on Coinbase and then they hold it on Coinbase. And from there, Coinbase is still technically the owner of that Bitcoin in terms of the actual Bitcoin network itself, right? Because the Bitcoin network only has an awareness of amounts of Bitcoin and addresses. And so what these wallets do is basically give you a giant list of addresses in which you can send Bitcoin to. And so if I sent myself Bitcoin, I would send it to this address here. And then if I went to send Bitcoin, I could send it from this wallet as well. So it's kind of just this software in which you can receive and send Bitcoin to and from, but actually maintain ownership of that Bitcoin. So like I said, you could have it on your phone as an application or on your computer as an application. And I saw a question someone asked about cold versus hot wallets. And so a cold wallet is basically a device that does the same thing, where it allows you to have addresses that you send Bitcoin to, but it's not actually connected to the internet really. So they're devices that you can just store. And I think I have one around here basically, but they're usually like these USB drives that you can plug into your computer and then send Bitcoin to it. And a hot wallet is software, right? So a phone application or a computer application. So these are a little bit better to use if you're trying to get access to your funds quickly, right? So if, think of it as a literal wallet in which you're holding dollar bills versus a safety deposit box that you're going to be holding in your garage, right? That would be an example of a cold storage wallet. But I think that was helpful. I guess, Meny, do you think any questions on that or?
And just one thing is there's no cost, right? Like when you're moving your funds from purchase on BitPay or whatever platform to your own wallet, there's no cost associated with that.
So there would be a small fee. So like I said earlier, I guess if I was talking about the slides, if I go to send Bitcoin, I'm going to be paying a transaction fee to the people that are processing that, which would be the miners, right? So whichever miner was the one that picked up my transaction and then put it in their block and processed it and got it approved, I'm going to be paying them a small fee. So it's going to be very small, right? But there is just a fee in actually sending transactions, just as most like credit card processing or debit cards would charge a fee as well.
Yeah. And then, thank you for sharing that. And then back to the process, right? And I'm just gonna let me share this just really simple slide over here. That's our partnership, right? Pacific Coastland Escrow and Forum Pay. It's really as simple as it sounds, right? You have a wallet. Grant has a wallet, and he has 100 Bitcoins, and you want to drop 10 of them to buy a house, right? A nice condo in Long Beach. That's pretty much almost the equivalent, I guess, more or less, right? So he's going to reach out to us, to Pacific, and say like, hey, look, I'm looking to buy this house with cryptocurrency. Like, I want to use my coins to purchase the house. Not a problem. Okay, so we send out that specific secured code through Forum Pay to the purchaser, to the buyer. Just to remind you, by the way, that until that part, there was a traditional still relationship between buyer and seller, right? The seller would should be okay with selling the house to that specific buyer with that specific offer with whatever conditions, right? But money is money. So Grant got this highly secured code. He's gonna then before sending the money, he will need to go through a process of identity verification, right? 5 to 7 days with Forum Pay, right? That's David. And to make sure that Grant is legit, is kosher. There's not any attempt to money laundering or David, what else did you guys, see out there or have out there in this, in the world?
Yeah, just proof of funds. There's, as you know, there's stuff going on with countries overseas and new people on lists and things. So we just check all the international lists, make sure they're not on them, make sure their wallets don't have any illegal activity, or since everything is traceable with the Bitcoin, we can see if the companies that we're partnered with that do that full verification instantaneously, they check, make sure that Bitcoin's a good Bitcoin and it's not, it was never traded illegally back in the day or something like that. So it's all, so this whole system, it's like, let's take out Bitcoin, let's get back to like the bartering system, so let's say Joe had 300 apples and he wants to buy a house. Sorry, there's a loud car. Joe had 300 apples and he wants to buy a house. We're in the middle saying, hey, the seller of the house doesn't want apples. They're full. They just ate 4 bananas. So then they don't want the apples. We want apples, but we have what they want. We have cash. So we take the apples, give the cash, and then on the side, we sell off our apples and get our cash. So we immediately sell off our apples, get the cash, wire it to the account. Yeah, it's a big marketing thing for you guys, though. It's a huge opportunity for you guys to go out and really post online and say, hey, buy this house, do hashtag crypto and little things like that, because these crypto people are young. So with large transactions, it's around a 1% fee. It's I'll say 1% fee. With different companies that we also deal with, gambling companies and some high risk industries. So our percentages change a little bit, but with real estate, and since they're such large transactions, it's a 1% fee.
So what it means that the purchaser will add that 1%, right? That Forum Pay will charge for that wallet conversion. But back to the process, right? The flow of the process. The good thing about that, when it comes to not that we don't have it in the traditional real estate, but here there's another layer of protection that they vetting the individual, right?
Mhm.
And the source of the funds, or AKA cryptocurrency, or whatever it can
Yeah.
be, Bitcoin or what have you. By the way, what kind of coins are you guys able to convert?
Well, we own our own exchange, so we can add, if you have a $10 million house, just let us know what coin it is, and then we could add it to it if it has a good market out there. They're coins if we're able to sell them. If there's buyers out there, if it's a random coin and there's no one out there selling it, then probably cannot add it, because that's, you can't.
Yeah.
Even if the seller accepted that weird coin, he wouldn't be able to sell it. So we do, what is it? Litecoin, Ripple, Ethereum, obviously, all the big ones. But we do have our own exchange. So if you guys have any large transactions, just let us know. Let me know at david@forumpay.com, or tell the escrow company, or tell Pacific Coastline Escrow the type of currency. So basically what happens, I'll give you the deal with the fees. So say a house, we'll just make it simple, $100. The escrow company will type in, all they need to know is $100, the email address of the person, and then basically it gets sent to them. Their QR code will represent $101, and then $101 will be sent. We will take that $1, and then $100 will be settled into the escrow account. So it's automatic. They don't have to do the math on the percentage every time.
And then back to the flow, right? The flow of the transaction is, once that individual was confirmed, approved, etc. Then, like what Judge David right now mentioned, then there is the whole conversion, which happens. How fast the conversion goes, David?
It's instant. That's why we do all of the verification and everything beforehand. And so with, say, Pacific Coastline Escrow, we have already, for them to sign up and partner with us, they already go through a system and have an account, a bank account that is wireable to in there. So once that payment is sent, everything is automatic and it's all in there, verified, and it goes instantaneously. That's why there's no volatility. So we just get everything set for that payment to happen instantaneously.
Yeah. And then, so once the money was sent to the escrow account, then you're treating this like as a just regular traditional escrow. You have whatever contingencies, whatever time of escrow, etc. Right? And someone was asking in the chat, can you use part of the funds? Do you have to put all the funds in crypto? No, you don't have to. If let's say, and on a side note, by the way, not all, but some lenders will, and Grant, not sure if you're familiar with any stories. I know of a few transactions that some of the lenders considered approved crypto. I know about the Bitcoin specifically as a valid asset for down payment or for liquid cash as a part of the proof of funds. Interesting, right?
Wow.
So you can partially purchase a house. You don't have to put the entire amount. You can buy, let's say down payment is, $50,000, right? Or whatever that amount is. If the rest you're going to finance, you can use only that amount as a crypto conversion, right? And then the rest will go to escrow because it's still traditional transaction.
Yeah, it's whatever you want. The escrow company, when it's at time to send the wire instructions to the buyer, they just send wire instructions along with the forum pay. It just gives them options. It's just, if they can put as much percentage as they want, 100% in that one, or do 50-50, as long as it ends in the escrow account, I guess, right?
Yeah, so as simple as that,
Yeah.
And I can tell you that where this is heading overall, because we are working on several projects, it's very exciting. Now this is not the future because it's already here. So this is
Mhm.
present. So it's just a matter of like how many more people will take advantage. And of course, whoever is or was invested in crypto properly, so they can afford, right, such amount of money to be purchased whatever properties,
Mhm.
etc. Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Sorry, anything else that you want to add?
Just there's some facts that we found that in 2020, I think it was 10%, maybe it was 2021, 10% of new first-time home buyers actually liquidated crypto assets. So went through the process of sending it to a wallet attached to an exchange if it was in a different wallet, cashing it out and sending it to their bank account to pay the deposit on their house. So 10% of people did that, first-time home buyers, in 2020 or 2021, but it's coming, so it's a good opportunity. First-time home buyers are younger, makes sense that they're the crypto people. I think it is a good opportunity. It's key to market it, guys, because I've found that you gotta get, it's cool, like to have people be able to buy a house in crypto. We gotta take advantage of this cool factor right now. In 20 years, when everyone's doing Bitcoin, it's not going to be as cool. So if you advertise a cool house, you buy this in crypto, someone just go on their phone, let's buy a house in crypto, my Dogecoin's up. Boom, you got a sale.
And Joseph, to your question, it depends on the type of the transaction, right? If or the use of the funds. So again, Grant has you want to use 10, 11 of his Bitcoins to purchase $600,000, $700,000 house, whatever, right? So let's say you want to use all the entire purchase with crypto, then yes, they will have to drop the entire amount that will be converted to cash, to US dollar, right? If you want to use it partially, you can do it partially. If you want to do it in two different transactions, put down payment, and then you can do it too. Remember that the 1% fee, if it's going to be the two pieces or the whole thing, is going to be the same thing anyways. So it really depends, right? Now, the advantage here in this specific case is, which I think it's kind of, baby steps, if you may, because we're still not in a level where people just buying or transacting in real estate right and left all day, every day using cryptocurrency. Let's just tag Bitcoin, for example, right? So we're not there yet. So like the Bitcoin to Bitcoin, well, because we're not using coins on a regular basis to purchase any kind of goods or other services. Not yet. We're not there yet, right? But you can definitely utilize that to that capacity. So having said that, to have a traditional escrow company like Pacific that is still the middle person, right? That help to transact, and then you have more flexibility. It's still going to be like that for quite some time, and offer some a bit more diversity than the just like coin to coin. And on a side note, coin to coin already exists. Exists. It's not the future. We're already there.
Yeah.
David, another not sure how much you can share foreign pay, right? Because you guys doing different transactions, right? Like not just real estate, but specifically real estate. Is this just locally in the US? Is this globally? Anything else you can kind of share? Any different trends or what have you?
Yeah, we're signing up these, as you guys know, crypto has been been going down for a few months now. So there weren't many transactions happening. So that is something that, you got to watch the market as well. When it's going up, make sure you send an email to your people, like, remember, buy a house in crypto. So yeah, I mean, it's moving. A lot of, as I said, the 10% of people had to cash out their crypto. So there's definitely a lot of people who we don't have the statistics on them. They didn't tell anyone that they cashed out their crypto. Yeah, I just got a call the other day. Someone's trying to buy a $13 million house down in Texas in crypto. So there's a lot of things, it's coming back. So it's good.
So a couple of questions over here. If for some reason the buyer was shortchanged or overpaid, right, the whatever funds, it sits in a traditional escrow trust account. So
Yeah.
yes,
It's cash.
yeah, it's cash. So at the end of every transaction, the escrow, officer, they reconcile the account. So they're gonna get, any excess funds or vice versa. If something is missing, right, for whatever reason, maybe they can put cash or crypto. Depends on the type.
Just as it is now, just as
And
the escrow officer, I don't know what they're called, but they go and check, make sure all the numbers are right. If it's over, then I'm sure they send it back. If it's under, then they request for more. So it's the same exact thing. The thing with this though is since we instantly sell it to cash, there's no refunds in crypto. So we don't send it back. If they want their money back, just send it back in cash and they can buy their favorite crypto with their favorite exchange in their favorite wallet or whatever it is, themselves. But let the crypto experts be in charge of that. And we're just offering them this nice, easy, simple way to pay for a house, and it makes everyone happy. And it's only a small percentage where they would have paid some small percentages to, transfer it, cash it out, and get it to your bank account, which there's, it takes like 3 to 5 days to wire it. So there's opportunity cost there if you were bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's awesome. And thank you everybody for also engaging, asking questions and making some notes on the chat, sharing some information. Grant, anything else before we're going to let everybody go?
No, I think you guys covered it really well. Nothing else to add. I think it'll be interesting to see how it progresses moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. So again, if you want to, reach out and find out more, if you do have, before we enrolled, just on the side note, crypto, foreign pay with Pacific Coast and Escrow. One of the reasons, by the way, that gave us some kind of a drive and incentive, right, was existing clientele, landlords, homeowners, commercial owners that wanted to list the properties with the condition to be paid. It's going to happen through crypto, like Bitcoins or what have you. So it's very exciting to kind of go into that field and see how things will evolve. So if you do have any listing or seller that wanted to list as a condition to crypto payments, which is doable, and or someone who want to, mostly that's the bigger purchasing power, people that want to buy real estate with cryptocurrency of some kind, reach out to us, reach out to me, Pacific Coast and Escrow, and then we can definitely have a chat and guide you and see if we can help you out. Okay, so that's all we had for this time around. We're going to have more sessions later on with more great news, but I want to thank you, Grant, Luna, with Fidelity, and for your expertise and the 101. Good stuff as always. And David Ryder with the Foreign Pay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me know if anyone has any questions. Sure, Grant too. Just email us. We're here.
You bet. And thanks everybody for joining the session. And again, this is being recorded. So we're going to share the recording later today so you can go back and have some fun. So thanks everybody. Thanks for your time. See you soon.
Thanks, Meny.